So let's just get into it. Intro to Azure IoT. Okay, I think we're good. I think we got everything we need to have a successful presentation. We have people, we have me, we have a screen, we have a computer. It's getting recorded for posterity. Yep. So I want to tell you a little story about an elevator in our building. So Nebbia Technology, we work out of a building over there. It's called the Crest Building. It's like 2 blocks that way. We have an elevator in our building, and it had been terrible for a very long time. Like, every once in a while we'd show up and it just wouldn't work, and we'd have to call the building manager, and they'd have to call people, and we'd trot up the stairs, and people would forget their keys. We'd have like 3 keys to get in the building. And just to make sure that you guys know I'm not lying, Esteban, is that true?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Esteban is a known liar, so no, I'm just kidding. So this is like a perfect use case, in my opinion, for IoT, because it took months and months. It affected our lives. It seemed like it should be an easy fix. I have no idea what was wrong with the elevator. It just wouldn't work sometimes. And what's really cool is that we're starting to get to a point with IoT that we can make that experience a lot better. And that's what IoT is about. All the things around us, that don't have a computing power in it right now, that aren't connected to the internet, when they are, our experience is going to be better. So as a real world example, this photo is from Microsoft's site, and they worked with a company that I am going to butcher their name because they're Swedish. It's ThyssenKrupp. Go with that. And they have a video on their website, and I didn't know what our audio situation was here, so I didn't want to play it. But the point is, they have sensors inside of their elevators now, thanks to a partnership with Microsoft, that they can go on site with a HoloLens, look at the elevator, and it'll pop up like issues with it and point to different things. So people who, maybe a junior, level position can go out and look at the thing and understand what's going on. And then they can call back to experts that don't have to travel all the time and say, hey, what is this component right here? And they'll be like, oh, that's the blah, blah, blah. It's unplugged, so there must be something wrong. And even before all this, they can get data coming back from sensors on these elevators and predict when, maintenance needs to happen. Elevators live in different environments, so you could manufacture one elevator, and in one case it's running 2 times a day and it doesn't need to be checked very often, or another time it could be running 100 times a day. It needs checked all the time. So you don't want to go check that one that's being run, once or twice a day if you don't need to. That's just something that you're going to waste your time doing. So if you can have sensors that can tell you information about that elevator, in our case, tell them that it's not working, they could have they could have found out at midnight that it wasn't working, sent out an engineer, looked at the problem, had it pop up in their HoloLens visor, and see what the issue was, fix it, and we would have been none the wiser. And that could have been a better experience for us at Nebbia Technology. I also want to say that not everything needs to be that ridiculously complicated. So this is a real device, as opposed to the other thing, which was also real devices, but I have no idea where they are. This was in Nebbia's building. I helped connect it to Azure IoT Central. And what it does is it has a little, these are sensors down here, and it has a little temperature sensor, and it would send an alert when it got above like 85 degrees. And now we didn't really trust that, so that's a whole other thing. Like, how do you trust that it's telling you the truth? But that's more information than we had before. Because I was always curious, when I was outside of the office, is it getting warm in there? Like, what happens when we're not there? Does things break? So it was really fun to set this up, connect it to our Wi-Fi, and connect it to IoT Central and get a dashboard and get email alerts, all in the space of a few hours. This is called a MX chip, by the way. You can buy these for $35, I think. And so there's a whole range of things with IoT. It's not all really complicated, and it's not all really simple, but you can get a lot of value out of doing something fairly simple. And if you work for companies that have or clients that have a physical presence in the world, there's probably some sort of IoT solution that could help your work. So we talked about what is IoT earlier, and this is kind of my definition. So there's two pieces out here. There's sensors, and this is a temperature and humidity sensor, and there's actuators, and this one's a motor. So sensors read the real world. They're kind of like our eyes and ears out there, and that information goes to some sort of controller, which connects that information to the internet. And then whatever happens in the cloud happens in the cloud. There's a million things that could happen. You could have a real person looking at a dashboard and clicking a button if they see something's wrong. And what that button would do is go back from the cloud to the device, to an actuator, which is like our hands out in the real world, to change the real world. So if something's overheating, you could get an alert in a dashboard, and then you say, okay, clearly let's shut it down. And then you hit the button, and it hits a lever, and it shuts it down. So that's something where normally you'd have to go on site to do it, and now you can do it remotely. So there's a bunch of different services that Microsoft provides in this layer between in Azure and between Azure and your devices, and they even offer stuff on devices. So, and I'm doing it on my shadow, by the way. I'm not pointing out in the middle of space. I'm like, so we're going to go over each service that Azure offers. So you'll have a kind of brain map as to like what you might want to look at. Because I know that I'm in this space, like, I think about this all the time, and it's still overwhelming. So it's like, I want to get you guys up to speed so you kind of get a view of the land. So these are the benefits. When you have the eyes and ears, you don't have to be everywhere at once now in person. You can have things doing stuff for you. And you can automate those things. So instead of you looking at a dashboard and hitting a button, you could have just a simple script that says if the temperature's over something, turn it off. Or you could have something more advanced where it's like artificial intelligence or some sort of machine learning algorithm that, based on a few different parameters, it decides to turn off whatever machine before it explodes. So you laugh, but machines explode, Sadly, we saw the Boeing or whatever airplane, the rotors flew off. If you had vibration sensors on there, maybe we could have shut that down before that happened. I'm just saying that's real stuff. That's real stuff. So these are some of the benefits we can do. Reduce costs, increase efficiencies, automate things, basically make the change in the physical world like, how the internet, the internet, right? How it changed our lives completely from like 20 years, completely modified how we do our things. We order stuff on Amazon. You guys remember that? PJs? Ordering stuff on Amazon in your PJs? Well, that sort of sea change in how we live our lives as people and communicate with other people. Imagine if we had to put flyers out to get you here. Physical flyers, we hung them on doors. That's not how you got here. You got here because you went on a website and you found this meetup and there was something, maybe you saw it on social media. Completely changed our lives. I feel like the same thing is coming down the pipe for things. So connecting all our things is going to change. It's going to be a whole other sea change to change our lives. Okay. You guys remember that thing we did at the very, very beginning? You guys were like, he's just wasting time. No, that was part of a big master plan. So I would like a volunteer. One volunteer. Any volunteer. No, you already went. Back there. Teacher's pet. Well, so my question to you is, what did your partner say when you said, do you have an IoT device? And why did you buy it? What did your partner say when you said, do you have an IoT device and why did you buy it? Yeah, at the very beginning we did partners. And no, that's fine. All right, so a volunteer that had the question answered by their partner. Yes?
So I said I did not have an IoT device. However,
no. What did your partner say?
My partner,
Yeah.
he does have an IoT device. He showed me on his phone that he's monitoring his refrigerator temperature and make sure the refrigerator was.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, follow-up question to the gentleman who's your partner. Did you have that 5 years ago?
Oh, no.
No. Okay, so things are changing. All right, and then the next question was, I'll ask your partner, what did you find out from your partner about some IoT device that he wanted to buy and has not bought yet? What is that device and what's keeping him from buying it? Did you ask that question?
Yeah, the home security solution.
Oh, okay. So like Vivint or Vivint or whatever it is, or something like that, like home security, Ring, any of those?
Yeah, all those ones.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I haven't bought one yet, but interested in exploring that and moving forward with that.
And what's keeping you from buying it?
I guess the technology's changing really fast and waiting for it to be, in my opinion, to be kind of, somewhat state-of-the-art.
Okay, all right. I would argue that's a cost problem, because if it were so cheap that it made, there's a cost point. If it cost $5, you'd do it, right? Like it would just be, okay, we'll spend $5 on that. So there's a cost thing there, I think. Great. Thank you for answering. Does anybody else want to volunteer? I won't be as mean. No? So these are great examples. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. These are great examples because we're not there yet, but we're getting there. So the fact that we can tell our temperature on our refrigerator and know when our food's going to spoil, or if you go on vacation and you come back and everything seems fine, but the freezer broke and then came back online, or the power went out for 6 hours and then came back online, you might never know if you look in your freezer. If you don't have anything that's melted, it'd be refrozen. So it's kind of scary. And it's really cool that we have the internet and we can learn those types of things now. And there's stuff out there we want to buy, but there's something keeping us from doing it. There's privacy issues, there's security issues, there's, cost issues, and those are the challenges we have as a group. If you're interested in Azure, you're probably building things. So as a group, we want to take on those challenges and solve them, and thankfully we have a multi-billion-dollar company, Microsoft, that's doing a lot of the hard work for us. So I'm going to talk about what they offer and where it fits in the puzzle. Before I do that, I want to say there will be a game at the end, and winner gets a Raspberry Pi 3. B. Estimated $35 value. And if I see it on eBay later, I won't know it's yours. So, I just want to give you guys a timeline of Azure solutions as they come out to kind of give you an idea of how fast things are happening and also tell you what is, Microsoft offers. So in August 2015, Microsoft came out with Windows 10 IoT Core, and I'll explain what all these things are later. Then in February 2016, a year later, or 6 months later, they came out with IoT Hub, which basically connects stuff you write in IoT Core and other devices or other operating systems to the cloud. And then in March, several months later, they came out with IoT Suite, which is a way to kind of bootstrap a solution from and get a bunch of services running that can fulfill needs of typical IoT solutions. So then we had Azure Global Bootcamp. I presented. It was about IoT. Anybody come to that? Cool. Did anybody who came do anything with IoT in the meantime? That's my goal for today. Change that story, because I'll explain in a little bit. So after that boot camp, between then and now, they came out with 3 other things. Now, granted, Azure IoT Edge is kind of like a renaming, a rebranding of something, but they did improve it enough to warrant renaming it. So they came out with IoT Edge, IoT Central, and Azure Sphere, which was literally less than a week ago. They said, hey, Azure Sphere, everybody, by the way. So I'm going to be able to tell you a little bit about it, but I'm not going to be able to dive deep into that. So I want to give you kind of an idea of okay, they're kind of plodding along, whatever, but then they're So Microsoft's making a $5 billion investment in the next 4 years in IoT because they know, they're smart. They know when we have all these devices out there, they don't need to go to sleep. They don't need to eat. They are just going to be making data all the time. And who's going to take care of that data? Who's going to process that data? Who's going to store that data? Well, the cloud, Azure, of course. They're going to make a lot of money from this. And we all, if you're building stuff for Azure, could also make some money along the way too, because you could build the solutions. And the people you're building solutions for get a benefit. Everybody wins. I love situations where everybody wins. Like at the end of this talk, when you guys, oh, by the way, you have to pay attention during the talk to learn things, because it's going to come up in the game. So the more you learn, the better chance of getting the Raspberry Pi. So just fun fact. Just pay attention. Okay. Not that you weren't already paying attention. Except for you.
I'm never paying attention.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to talk about, so I'm going to go through all the IoT services Azure offers and kind of map them so you know what they do. So if you see them again, you'll kind of get an idea of like how you could use that. So the first one I want to talk about is IoT Hub. IoT Hub is basically the connection from a device to the cloud. There's a lot of difficulties with connecting devices to the cloud. Like the internet drops out, no one's around to restart the internet, and no one's around to like stop pressing buttons while the internet's not there. So this device, assumedly, is making a bunch of data and thinking it's sending it to the internet, or it's just erroring out. And it can't tell anybody. It's like, it's screaming into the void. And so IoT Hub helps with that. It can't keep the internet from going out, but it does make it so when the internet comes back on, it can robustly reconnect and send messages again and do all that good stuff. It also abstracts the underlying layer of the communication protocol. So we have in the web HTTP and WebSockets. Well, when you have the Internet of Things, you can use whatever protocols you want. So they have MQTT, which is another protocol that's lightweight, built for connecting things to other things. They also use AMQP, which is very similar. So there's your choice of protocols. There's pros and cons for each one. But the point is that you can interact from your device to the cloud without worrying about that layer. You just kind of use the SDK that Microsoft gives you to connect the two. And they have SDKs, like libraries, that you can call in C, Java, Node, .NET. So wherever you're at, whatever you're developing, doesn't have to be a .NET app, could be a JavaScript Node server. You can connect to a device using IoT Hub. This is like behind the scenes of everything else I'm going to talk about from here on out. This is like the workhorse of IoT for Azure. So IoT Suite is, like I said before, kind of a bootstrapping of a full IoT solution. And what you do is you go through a little wizard and you put in what you want to build, and it poops out a bunch of Azure services that fulfill that need, right? An application with a dashboard, all this stuff. The thing is, you can go in and modify that. So if you say, hey, I have a client, they want this really complex IoT solution, I'm going to estimate it at 6 months. Well, if you use IoT Suite, you can kind of chop 3 months off of that estimate, because they've taken care of a lot of the underlying framework just by hitting a wizard. It's not going to be something that is going to solve all your problems, because assumedly your client doesn't want the out-of-the-box solution Microsoft gives you. Assumedly they have their own needs and wants, but the structure will be there so that you can build on top of it. It's really good if you want to build a minimum viable product and you don't want to spend 3 months figuring out what structure you want to have, what architecture you want to have. So then we come to IoT Edge preview. They love saying that so they don't have to answer a bunch of, get hassled by people who say it doesn't work. It's in preview. Of course it doesn't work, yeah. But it is fairly robust, and it's open source. So if it doesn't work, IoT Edge, you can go into GitHub, download all the source code, and change it. So it's like, you don't lose anything. So IoT Edge is an application that runs on small devices at the edge. And the idea is that the reason why it's called IoT Edge and Azure IoT Edge is because you can take bits and pieces of Azure and put it on the edge. So rather than having to send a ton of data over to Azure, like video processing, like video is really expensive to send over networks. So with IoT Edge, you can run it at the edge, basically, inside a building somewhere that you have a video camera in, process that video, and use machine learning algorithms that you've created in Azure at the edge to say, I don't really recognize any of these people. I'm just going to keep processing. Oh, there's someone I recognize. And then you peel off a photo and send it over to Azure. And then you say, oh, now we only have to transfer one photo rather than hours of video feed when we didn't see anybody. And that reduces costs for when you get that bill at the end of the month. And instead of having hundreds of gigabytes of data, maybe even going over cellular networks, you have a gigabyte. And that's a much easier bill to swallow. It also helps with latency. So if you have a machine that's really highly sensitive running at the edge, you don't want to wait for the data to go back to the cloud and come all the way back to your edge device to say, oh, please shut down, you're getting too hot, because by then it could be too late. So it reduces the latency too if you're running some of these services that Azure offers at the edge. You can also, in addition to machine learning algorithms, you can use functions and stream analytics if you're familiar with those in Azure. If you're not, that's fine. You can use IoT Edge to run just your own code. You don't have to use any Azure stuff at all. You don't have to use any Microsoft Azure stuff at all. You don't have to connect it to Azure. It's its own little product. And it compiles down into Windows, and it also compiles down into Linux. And it's built of modules that talk to each other over a bus. So the whole thing is built to just take a bunch of data from all these sensors all throughout like a factory, process that data, and then send it to the cloud, typically. Or send a log file, or send an email. And it's cool because it's open source and it's free. And these modules that you write for Azure IoT Edge, you can write them in C, you can write them in Node, you can write them in C#. So this is another one of those things where no matter what language you probably know a language that can work in here. And you can mix and match modules. So if your friend writes one in C and you write one in C#, they can play nicely together in the same IoT Edge solution running at the edge. Whew. All right, let's take a break here. Let's take a little brain break. I'll take one question. I've been talking quite a lot. From someone who has not raised their hand yet. Yes.
So is there a possibility, like, and you mentioned that when the internet is down, so it may have the data backup at the device itself, it will transfer once the internet is on. So is there a way that we can make it connect to the internet from the cellular when the internet at the home is down, something like that?
Is there any way to connect it to...
Is there any way for it to use the internet from the phone? From the device that we are using, like the phone, it has the internet all the time from the cellular, right? So once the internet at home is down, so is there a way for it to connect?
So the question is there, if the internet in one...
Well, he's just saying if it goes down, how it shifts to like using cellular or something like that.
So you could create it to do that. It out of the box won't shift between different, let's say you have a Wi-Fi hotspot and you want to use that because data is cheap to send because it's like a hardwire. And then you this is really critical data. You need this data. So you have a secondary, SIM card on your device and it has a cellular network and you just use that as a backup. You would have, in that case, if you're using IoT Hub, it's not going to automatically fail over. You would write the code to do that. And it's totally within your power to do it. And the code that talks to IoT Hub doesn't care what internet connection it's using, so it's outside of that domain, basically. So, did that answer your question?
Yes.
Great question. And that's huge too. So it's all about what's important to you. If it's super important that the internet is there all the time, it's like uptime in the cloud. There's going to be more expense to make that happen. So, you can have it fail over to 5 different cellular networks if you wanted it to. You just have to create a device that can handle 5 SIM cards, and that's a whole other beast. So next on the list, or I think we're about halfway through the Azure services. How much time do we have left, Esteban? I don't have the clock.
You have 30 minutes
30 minutes?
if you want to. Yeah.
I have no more slides. I'll have one more question just because I don't have any more slides.
Since you like IoT so much, what have you looked at as far as Microsoft City Next projects? You know, that's something that's kind of big, taking place in Europe for smart cities. But have you delved into that?
No. I don't know if I recognize the name City Next. That's cool. I know they have an 88 acres project. Are you familiar with that one?
Arizona?
I assume it's building on those types of ideas, like where you can connect buildings and then all the buildings have sensors and then you can learn about energy efficiency at a big scale. I will say I haven't heard of City Next. That's a great thing. I will Google it. And do you have something you want to say about it?
No, I just figured since you were.
Yeah. Well, I'm super into Microsoft IoT, but it's a big area, you know, so I don't claim to know everything. And that's a good one. So smart cities are going to be huge. The biggest boundary, just in general, that I know of for smart cities is getting people to cooperate. And so governments mainly, and getting money for it, because usually they're in a city, you know, most cities are just underfunded in general, so, or the funds don't go into the appropriate place because they're earmarked years before. So a lot of the problems with getting smart cities on board is just, should we add sensors to this, or should we fix a bridge? And so most people want to fix the bridge, but it's also important to think about how can we take those sensors and put it on the bridge so that we know when we need to fix it more accurately, because there's a lot of waste there too. Talked about it for a long time.
So the recent Linux version that Microsoft released that's specific to IoT.
Yes, I'll talk about that soon.
Okay.
Okay, so Azure IoT Central is free for 7 days. And it's software as a service for IoT. And I think it's $100 a month after that. And if you're really building an IoT solution, that's not bad. And I think it's 50 cents a device past 100 devices. So cost-wise, like, there's a monthly recurring cost. And that's a problem if you have a one-time only device. Like if someone buys a device off the shelf and they never pay you again. So if you're building IoT devices, don't just think about getting that money at the very beginning. Think about how you're going to support it in the long term, because there's costs involved with the processing data. So if you're building an IoT device, just think about that. So what's cool about IoT Central is it builds on all of those things we talked about earlier. IoT Hub, IoT Suite. It's not using IoT Suite necessarily, but it's definitely inspired by it, because it abstracts basically what IoT Suite does and hides all the code and hides all of the services in Azure and just puts a pretty dashboard and allows you to connect that dashboard and any temperature, whatever type of parameters you want, to devices. So this is really good if you know how to build devices, or if you work for a company that knows how to build devices, or you have clients who know how to build devices, but they don't know anything about the cloud, and you want to get them up to speed really quickly. And it pulls in device management, which is really difficult to bootstrap yourself. It pulls in alerts, which is, you know, something that you'd have to bootstrap yourself. It pulls in dashboards. And I'm going to demo it today, so you'll be able to look at it and understand what's going on. Unfortunately, it was just released into public preview in December, so it's still fairly early in the game with this. And I say unfortunately because right now the only extensibility points are email alerts. They say they have like being able to send stuff via Azure functions, like you could send information to an Azure function or a web hook or into other services like Microsoft Dynamics, but they're not online yet. So I would be hesitant to say, yeah, go for it. Use the solution for an enterprise because you could run out of road fairly quickly, and they could make a request and say, hey, can this do that? I love what you've done so far. And you'd be like, it can't do that. And so think carefully about it. This is where you could do the battle in your mind between IoT Suite, which you can edit any of it, and this, which is going to get you online faster, but there's a point where it stops being useful and customizable. It stops being customizable. It's going to be useful, but finally, Santosh, where are you? He's going to miss it. So, Santosh,
Yeah.
what did you ask?
Oh, the recent Linux release by Microsoft for IoT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So recently, as in less than a week ago, Microsoft announced Azure Sphere. And this is blowing my mind because what they've done, oh my God, I don't even know. I can't even tell. Do you guys deserve to know? Yes. Okay, yes. I'm going to say yes, you deserve to know. You know how you go home and you touch the microwave and you go beep, 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 right? And then you go over to the fridge and you hit the little thing, the water comes out of the spigot and you're like, oh, cool, I got water, I got ice, nice. You go over to the stove and you hit the button, boop, 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 boop. Those are all computers. Really, really tiny computers that right now there's engineers who are sweating because when they release that, when they ship that product, there's going to be no bug fixes. It goes out there and it sits there, and if there's a bug, And I know this personally because I have a Samsung washer that was recalled, and it basically exploded. For real. Not mine, but others.
Yep.
And the drum would spin too fast and like fly out of the top, and it would just blow up. I'm serious. Google Samsung washer recall. They were called 2.9 million washers. I had a rep come to my house, not a rep, like a service guy come to my house. He had to fix it. How expensive do you think that was for Samsung? Imagine if they had their little computer in there connected to the internet to say, I can be updated. And then they said, oh gosh, we got alerts from these connected washers that said, hey, 2 of them blew up. How about we send a lawyer out to those people's houses? And then also, maybe we could update the code in everybody else's and slow down the washer a little bit. Send them a rebate for Tide. I don't know, but it's going to be cheaper than sending out a real person. Like say, have an email. Hey, Samsung person, sorry to inform you. Your washer's going to run a little bit slower now. It's okay. We took care of it. It's going to be fine. Still going to clean your clothes. Here's a $5 rebate for Tide. You're welcome. And everybody's like, oh man, Samsung's awesome. They sent me a $5 rebate for Tide, and I didn't know any difference in my washer. So what Azure Sphere does is all those little tiny devices so far have not been connected to the internet, pretty much. And when they are connected to the internet, there's a lot of security concerns because cryptography takes processing power. And it's really hard to build a small device and have it be cryptographically secure and have an operating system on it that's secure and have it be able to have a single way of being updated. And there's just all these issues. Microsoft said, you know what, guys, don't worry about it. We'll build our own version of Linux for the very first time ever of all of time, of all of history. Microsoft has never made their own distribution of Linux. They did for IoT last week or less than a week ago. And so you take that, have it. Also, we have hardware reference designs. So all that hard security stuff in the hardware part of it, we'll take care of that too. And it's not that much more expensive than it's already out there. And we have the ability for you to connect it to the cloud, wrap it up in a circle, call it Sphere. 9 billion of these things, MCUs, not Microsoft's, not yet, but 9 billion of these things are made every year. Think about how fast this could grow. So I'm just saying. Just to put that in perspective, Windows 10, when they came out with it, they were like, we're gonna have this on 2 billion devices in 3 years or 5 years or something like that. And then a year later, they were like, we're going to have 1 billion devices. they kind of like dialed it down. They weren't like as excited about it because they're giving it away for free. Like anyone who already had Windows 8, or Windows 7 could download Windows 10. So they thought so many people are going to come to it. And 2 billion people are, a lot of people, or 2 billion devices. So that's nothing to sneeze at. This is as many people are on the planet every year that they're building these little tiny devices. Imagine if Microsoft captures 20% of that market. They just exceeded the number of Microsoft Windows 10 licenses they have with a Linux distribution. I can't even. So anyway, you should get into this side of the industry. Come on, join me in the IoT land. It's fun and exciting. So this is kind of like a map of a typical IoT solution, just to kind of tie all this stuff together. So there's IoT devices, and you could run an IoT client on them. In this case, it could be Windows 10 IoT Core, free, by the way. And that one literally is free forever. Even if you go commercial, free. You have low power devices, and they could have existing, typically you're not going to go out there in the wild and find something using Azure Sphere because it was, released a week ago. So there's a lot of devices out there that right now send stuff, but they don't connect to the internet. So you can take those and go through a gateway that runs Azure IoT Edge, and have that gateway pull in information from a lot of low power sensors, and then take that and securely connect to the cloud using IoT Hub. And then in the cloud, you could connect it to IoT Central with the SaaS solution, or IoT Suite, or build your own thing. So there's just, that's kind of the map of how it could work. How it does work. Yeah, go ahead.
That gateway, what type of hardware is that? Is that a full-fledged PC? Could that be a...
You could run it on Raspberry Pi.
Okay.
Like Windows 10 IoT Core runs on fairly low power devices. Like in the IoT world, it's actually computationally powerful, but in the scheme of things, it doesn't have to be an Intel NUC or anything like that. You don't really want to run it on a Raspberry Pi because there's nothing secure about it. Like you need there's a 3-letter thing that I always forget. TPM module. It's like an ATM machine. Anyway, so the point is, you can run a really quite inexpensive gateway at the edge. Intel sells ones that do have that on it, and I think they're like $100. And you could take sensors from hundreds of sensors and pass it through that gateway. So I want to pause for a second here and just click around. This is really like the weakest demo that's ever going to exist. So, don't get too excited. But I wanted to show you what IoT Central has to offer. Does anyone know how to? End slideshow. I don't know how to do that yet. We'll figure it out someday. Someday I'll learn how to present something. Okay, so this is, and I know I don't have very much time left, so I'm going to go really quickly. This is IoT Central. This is that SaaS solution I talked about. Everything right here is simulated. I don't have any actual, vending machines out there sending data. But that MX chip I showed at the beginning that was showing temperature in our office, that really was connected to this, and it took me a couple hours to set up. So it's not beyond your capabilities. Even if you don't know anything about code, you just go get the code and put it on it. Like, you don't have to change anything. So basically what IoT Central allows you to do is, it's quote unquote a no-code solution. So you can go in and see your devices that you have. You can add new devices. So let's say we look at our refrigerator 1. You can see, we have simulated, see, big letters, but you get information about what's happening. So before this, you would have no information. It would just be out there doing things. It could be, broken. It could be running too hot, too cold. You wouldn't know. Now you know. It's clairvoyance. You get to see all across the world around you. And if you have vending machines, if your company makes vending machines, this is a value add. This is hey, we'll come fix your vending machine before it's broken. You don't have to call us. How cool would that be? And your vending machine competitor's like, I don't know. Call us when it's broken. So this is really cool. And you can add rules. So if you wanted to have a high temperature alert and say, when a temperature reaches a certain threshold, send me an email. And there's different actions for that. And this one is email. There is other actions they will add in the future. Coming soon. Webhooks, SMS, logic apps, Azure functions. So they're promising, and I don't know when this is going to happen, but they're promising that this is going to be opened up a lot, and it's going to become a lot more useful when they do that. And if I were to look at my email, you would see a kind of faux pas on my part. So there's all my alerts. So you got to set up the alerts right, or else you're gonna get like hundreds of alerts all in the same time. So anyway, that's really, really tiny demo. Just wanted to put some real reality in there. I didn't want to just have a presentation. So let's get back to said presentation and just finish it out strong. So, so we're gonna play a game. So it's on your phones. So bring out your phones. And this is how you win the Raspberry Pi. And it's gonna take about 5 minutes or less. And so I need you guys to go to, I want you guys, if you want to win, it's up to you. Go to Kahoot, KAHOOT.IT. So it says right here, Kahoot.IT. And put in that number. And we'll start seeing people here when people put in their number. And it's going to take like 5 minutes. Santosh, I know I have very little time left. When is this thing supposed to end for me?
Yeah, you have 5 minutes.
Okay. So we got some people. Oh, no. It's all happening now. 12 people. 15. Got a lot of contenders here. Got a lot of contenders. Give it another 30 seconds. Esteban, soup can. Nice. Who put soup can in? Oh, okay. The winner. The future winner. All right. I'm going to give you 15 seconds. 15, 14, yada, yada. 34 people? Holy moly. Never mind. Shut it down. Shut it down. Too many. Overload their servers. Hey, who's a Jared in here? Oh! Told you Esteban's a liar. Honey badger. Okay, we're gonna say go for it. All right. So are you ready? So the questions are gonna come up here. It's timed, so answer quickly and accurately. How much money is Microsoft investing in IoT over the next 4 years? These are your answers. The faster you answer, the more points you get. The more accurately you answer, obviously, the more points you get. Is it 5 million, 500 million, 5 trillion, or 5 billion?
1 million, right?
Yeah. 34 people answered correctly. Good job. Isaac's on the top of the leaderboard. Must have answered it very quickly. Okay, next question. Is there a .NET NuGet package available for IoT Hub? By the way, not all of these I answered in this talk, so there could be some background knowledge you guys need. Or just good guesses. Is there a .NET NuGet package for IoT Hub? Yes, there is. Okay, Cody's at the top. All right, when was Azure Sphere released? Oh, January, February, April, March? I hope everybody gets this because I was pretty animated about that part. Yeah, most people got it right. Some people didn't pay attention. That's okay. It's okay. Or they, give them the benefit of the doubt. So what is the newest model, and this is not it, of Raspberry Pi? This is background knowledge. I didn't cover this. Is it the Raspberry Pi 3 Model B? Raspberry Pi Zero? Raspberry Pi 3 Model B Plus? Raspberry Pi Model 4? Esteban? No? All right. We'll school you. It is the B Plus, so almost the majority. That's okay. I didn't cover that information. Really, Esteban? I'm proud of you. How long is the free trial for Azure IoT Central? Free trial. By the way, that means there's no harm in signing up. Just go do it. It just kind of like stops working. You don't get charged. Don't quote me on that. Make sure you double check me on that one. I don't want any calls. 30 days, 7 days, 0 days, 42 days? Yeah. All right. Man, oh man, it's getting close now. So what's my Twitter handle? Is it this one, that one, or that one? No. I'd have to look at it twice.
That's for dyslexia or something?
You could either push a button here or just follow me on Twitter. There's two options here. Good job. Yeah, most people got it. That's awesome. Good job. All right, which of these is not real? Azure IoT Edge, Azure IoT Sphere, Azure IoT Hub, or Windows 10 IoT Core? It's a very subtle one. I'll say that. It's subtle. There's only 10 questions, so. Ooh, it's Azure IoT Sphere. It's just Azure Sphere. No IoT. All right, 8 out of 10. What is the most, oh, I might give you this one because I may have not said it directly. Nope. We'll find out later. I think this is the biggest thing that we have as a challenge for IoT. Yes. Wow, most of you agreed with me. Security is a big problem. Well, it's a big challenge. It's not a problem quite yet. So what communications protocol did I not mention for IoT Hub? Last question. MQTT, TCP, AMQP, HTTP, alphabet soup?
It's a trick question, right? Because
Is it?
Because HTTP is on top of
Which one did I not mention though?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know. All right. Oh, I have one more. I'm so sorry.
Come on, man.
How many MCUs are made a year? So how many microcontrollers are made a year? 9 billion, 5 billion, 2 billion, 1 billion. Billion with a B. All right, this one is the last question. 9 billion, good job. Who won? Whoever that is. What? Good job. You can come up and get this whenever you want. All right, thanks for playing, everyone. Thanks for playing. Good job. So I just want to close out the presentation and then call it a day. So this is your take-home homework. If you guys didn't win anything, you could pay for it. So Google that phrase, Adafruit Azure IoT Starter Kit. And if you can't remember that, take a picture of it. Because this is a $100 investment in your future. All those things I talked about all the cool Azure things, all of that, that's in your grasp. You can be a part of building that and you can play a role in there somewhere. No matter where you are at right now, knowledge-wise, you can learn and play a role in building IoT stuff in the future. So buy a starter kit. If you don't remember that exact phrase, you can still do it. So who am I? I'm that. I probably don't have any time for questions.
Yeah, I think we should.
So I know we have a very exciting speaker up next, John Papa. So I'm not going to take any time. But if you want to come see me after or take a picture of this or whatever, just follow me on Twitter. That'd be really great. Thank you guys for your time. I really appreciate it.